I got slightly confused by meeting Nurse Chapel's fiancé in the TOS episode, What Are Little Girls Made Of? In this episode, of course, it's the fiancé of a security officer on Enterprise, not Nurse Chapel's.
The Survivor. Like, I get what the issue is with Star Trek the Animated Series. A lot of people cannot take it seriously. And it's two things. It's first the style of animation. Like, it was the 70s, but I also see it in all the way up to the 90s in animated shows. Like, recently I watched the X-Men animated show and the 90s Fantastic Four animated show. This image of people having zero flexibility in their spine, so they are kind of like floating with legs moving and floating across the screen with legs moving, and it looks ridiculous. And I mean, I grew up with it with the first Lucasfilm games that came out on the Commodore 64, like Maniac Mansion. You hopefully know that, otherwise you shouldn't be on this channel or into nerd stuff at all. Or Zack McCracken, again, you should know it. And it had that exact same visual of floating with moving legs. It looked completely ridiculous, and it was that style of animation. That was just the way animation was all the way to the 90s, I think, all the way until the Japanese revolutionized it with their anime style and made people move more. I don't know how to finish that sentence, because I can just say make people move more. And not just be like floating bodies, but the legs are moving. Looked completely ridiculous. And people watching the 1970s Star Trek the animated shows obviously see these floating people, but their legs are moving. Looks ridiculous, I know that. And the other thing is that style of talking. I think it still happens in animated shows that everybody's shouting and everybody seems to be constantly astonished. Uhura! Hail the Romulan ship! The Romulan ship is on Channel 1! Mr. Spock, please report to the bridge! Yes, Captain, I'm reporting to the bridge! Whoa, everybody's shocked by everything they say. It's that style of talking, it's so weird, it's so common in animation. It used to be so common, and it still happens that everybody talks like that. Like, oh, bah, 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 bah. Oh, bah, bah, bah. Whoa! Even when they're talking normally, they're always shouting and always seem to be astonished. It sounds completely ridiculous. And then combine that with the moving, floating bodies. It looks and sounds ridiculous. So I understand people can't quite take the animated series seriously. I understand that. The reason I'm talking about this is because the animated series, Star Trek the Animated Series, has some really, really good episodes, and this one, The Survivor, it's one of them. It's really... First of all, it has character moments from a familiar character. It introduces the ex-husband, I think. Yeah, ex-husband of Nurse Chapel, who vanished. And he reappears, but it's not actually him. And then they develop a complex story of who that character is, how he relates to Nurse Chapel, how he relates to what he as his own character is. It's a really good, really well well-written story. It's another sign that the animated series took over a lot of things that didn't make it into the original series because the original series was cancelled too early, but a lot was left over. A lot of the great ideas for that live-action show were left over and turned into that animated series, and it shows that good writing of the original series, but puts it into this animated series, which, as I explained earlier, it looks ridiculous, it sounds ridiculous, but it has that same really good writing. And this is a really good episode. I don't want to go overboard with the spoilers, but I told you all the basics, and it's a really good, interesting story, and it's one of the reasons that this show is really worth watching. I know it looks ridiculous with the animation style. I know it sounds ridiculous with the way they shout into their microphones, always seem to be astonished by everything, and the sound effects are just terrible. That's what that was like the main criticism of the show, that the sound effects and the score were just terrible. Yeah, it's obvious, but it has that same good writing of the original series. It has that same quality writing for the most part. There are some weaker episodes, but episodes like The Survivor, that's really what makes the animated series worth watching. It's a great episode. It's one of the reasons the animated series is something you as a Star Trek fan should watch. Should know, should watch.